we've definitely written songs at each other.
I really love you a lot.
They're usually not the best songs.
They're usually not the best songs.
songwriting.
I think Mom accidentally broke up a fight, maybe even fist fight.
Yeah.
There was no fist fighting. There was someone punching a wall.
Well, that's what it was.
Yes.
Is that what you call him?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Isaac.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Zach.
And we're Hanson. And you're watching Billboard News.
I'm so psyched to be here today with a couch full of Hansons.
That's actually our new band name.
Couch full of Hansons.
Couch full of Hansons.
I feel like every few years, like there's always something exciting happening in Hanson world. And right now you're celebrating the 20th anniversary of your first independent album, Underneath. There is a deluxe re-release called Underneath Complete that I recommend everyone listen to and revisit. You're also on a headlining North American tour, which is kind of a cool concept. You're doing 2 nights in every city, right?
Going back to when we started promoting this album Underneath 20 years ago, we started by doing an acoustic tour, and we ended that whole album cycle by doing an electric tour. We thought, well, if we're gonna remember this record, let's remember the whole experience for the fans, especially the ones who came out. That was such a transforming of the Hanson identity, the ethos really kind of becoming solidified. People knew who we were as a band, I think, by the second album, but Underneath is our 3rd record, and we had to leave the label and go independent, and that relationship with the fans sort of changed in a way.
Pretty significant way.
It was like, we know you like this band, but will you support this band? Like, will you help us
do something?
Start over?
Underneath is being celebrated through this tour in a cool way. We are doing an acoustic and an electric night. And the album itself, we added the songs we did, the songs that were demoed, some songs that we thought would have been on the record but didn't end up on the final record, because we wanted to tell the complete musical story. The Underneath record was very influenced by sort of textural records, bands that were, from the first Coldplay record.
Yes.
People like Nick Drake, who a singer-songwriter, kind of folk hero from the 60s. So when you listen to Underneath, I think, people hear an era. You hear Strong Enough to Break as the start of the record. These songs are all sort of richer and layered, and we produced a great deal of it, as well as with great producers as well. So it's a record that that really works well in a live setting, and it's exciting to sort of go back and just really lean into those songs.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like an independent record in sort of every sense. And at the point at which it came out, you had certainly experienced a lot of chart success already. You had a 3-week #1, as we all know, with MMMBop. Not only did you get a #1 top independent albums entry with this, but you also made the top 25 of the Billboard 200. So that seems to me like it must have been, I don't know how much you paid attention to chart success at the time.
We did. And if I remember correctly, I think we also, I feel like Penny and Me, the single itself, which back then sold a lot.
For an independent record, especially.
It was very unusual.
That was a radio hit for sure. I just remember hearing it on the radio all the time.
It was on the radio at a level, the reality is when people talk about the radio costs money, it does, but not necessarily in the way that's like, here's a bag of cash, and a guy with a cigar. There's maybe a couple of those, but it's really it's the mechanism of how do you get in the line and how do you cut through and say, don't play the Beyonce record or whatever, play the Hanson record. That takes muscle. And so we were really beating the pavement, we were re-beginning, but the difference was we weren't. We already had met people all over the world with our music. So you're right, it was an indie record in every sense of the word, but at the same time, we already had this pedigree, we already had this kind of relationship. And so it's really just another chapter in the Hanson story.
Just another chapter of people didn't know what to do with us.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like the name of our next documentary. What are we going to do with Hanson?
Going back to that moment 20 years ago, where you guys were at, you were a huge band. It was not common for a band of your size to go independent at that point.
One of the key things about that decision was it wasn't obvious to anybody, but for us it seemed clear that the path to independence was the path for a career. Like you said,
it was a path of stability.
It was a path of stability, and like you said, we kind of have, at that point in our career, accomplished things few bands ever get to. You have this worldwide success, you're touring all over the world, you have fans, amazing, But immediately after our first record, there was a huge merger of companies, totally separate from our label. Second record was put out with a new label, and so by the time we got to that third record, it was really just that way of saying, okay, well, where do we want to be in 20 years? And we felt like we had just enough people that we sort of rebuilt our team around taking that chance. And so underneath, it was very New York actually. We moved to New York, we set up shop here, we could walk down to Soho to our distributor, to our label office we set up. I mean, it was actually kind of a very New York season of our lives.
Absolutely.
But it was also really betting on the fans, because one of the things that we all now live with just the devices in our hands. Like, remember the smartphones, they weren't, that was not a thing yet. It was forums and it was website, interactions, and we were definitely on the front end of that just because of the era of our lives and all of our fans. We grew up with the internet, and the industry really didn't realize what we did, which was we knew that there was an audience out there. We knew that there was an audience in Chicago and in Sao Paulo and in London, because we saw them online, and we said, you know what, we're not gonna have a #1 record, top of the charts, but we can have a #1 independent record, and we can build our touring base, and we can be who we are. Frankly, I don't think we'd be here 20 years later if we hadn't taken that kind of leap.
I mean, when you started 3CG, did you feel like there was any kind of blueprint you could follow? Were there other artists you were sort of looking to as examples? And by the same token, I would think you guys became an example to other artists very quickly.
We became a cautionary tale. No.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do what they did. It's very challenging and expensive.
There aren't any there really are no blueprints for what we tried to do, but there were pieces. We were hugely influenced career-wise by observing the Grateful Dead. Our first manager was a huge Deadhead, and just observing the non-hit career. Like, they had no radio. And here's a band that's very pop-oriented us and having released singles, so we believe in and we value that side of things. But then here's the band like Grateful Dead, it's filling stadiums, had this legacy. So we really loved that, and we adopted that in our culture of live music. It's why we still almost never play exactly the same show, even if it's pretty close, because we watched and loved the idea that fans would go to multiple shows. We went to 50 colleges during that first major cycle, showed the documentary that was about that making of that record and launching the label. And at this time, we were just barely, out of college age, right at that same time.
Yeah.
We would say, you gotta understand, like, what we're doing is not about crying over Hanson's struggles. It's about looking around, like, this is the industry we're in right now. Artists, fans need to engage in building the future that we want to see. Unfortunately, we've kind of handed it over again in a lot of ways to corporations with this last 20 years. But some things have changed, which are amazing, which is we do have a direct to audience communication with
through Facebook and Instagram and things of that nature.
And that is really such a different world. And there's still no exact model, except that more people own their masters than they used to. They're doing licensing deals more than just doing full deals. But then you also have these 360 deals where labels own everything. And so young artists need to be educated that they're an entrepreneur. I mean, you are an entrepreneur if you're an artist at some level.
Your art is your business.
Yes. We have to talk about Penny and Me. And there's a new version, the Moonlight version, on this re-release.
By the chair with the leopard skin under the light. It's always Penny and Me tonight.
When that video first came out, I remember because the star, Samira Armstrong, iconic actress from the OC, which was very big at the time. It was very
huge
exciting.
Show.
And she's back in this new video. And then your daughter, Penelope, is in it too. So tell me about reuniting with Samira, like working with your daughter. There's like a lot going on in this video.
I specifically kept in touch with Samira just like randomly over the years. And so I took a rough mix and sent it to her, and she responded immediately. She's like, "Oh my God."
Samira being a part of it was amazing, to have her reprise her role. I have a daughter named Penelope, who is Penny. And so when the concept came, the idea of like, wow, could Penny actually be Penny today? Like, could this...
The new Penny.
So that was a really cool concept. And for her to sort of say, yeah, I'd actually love to do that. And so the video ended up being actually shot as 3 stories that when you watch them, you kind of could see them each. You have young Penny and older Penny, original Penny, and then you have our story in the studio. And by the end of the video, when you watch it, you see all 3 of them, they all come together. It's like the music brought us all back together.
I was curious, like, are there artists over the years who you've been surprised to learn are Hanson fans, or who have sort of come
Lots.
into your orbit in particularly surprising ways?
Well, I mean, it's always interesting to me, probably most, that some of our peers you've influenced. You know, because guys,
we were so
we
young.
were so young.
Yeah, when we started.
You know, like we, not that long ago, we're doing some stuff with Corey Wong and sort of the whole Wolfpack gang. And you're sitting with those guys and they're going, yeah, dude, I grew up listening to you. And you're like,
How can you grow up? Because you're my age.
You're
How's
the
that
same
possible?
age. Happening? What is that guy?
We have been working for the time that a lot of people consider an entire career already, like over 30 years. We sat in our studio with Billie Eilish and Phineas when they happened to be in town, and they're their parents talking to us. They're like, we basically decided like they should make music because we saw Hanson and you guys seemed like you were okay. And like, that's insane.
Homeschooling.
Like homeschooling, like not like doing a non-traditional life, and then they pursued art, and here they are. They've done incredible, beautiful work.
In that same studio, Ed
Ed
Sheeran,
Sheeran.
when he was opening for Taylor, he was like, I want to play you some songs. You know, and we're like, okay, this is awesome.
Sitting-
you know, and he's like, oh no, and like, and he was
Nobody's
talking
heard
about,
these yet, you know?
Yeah.
songs of ours that he liked and things like that, and you're just going like, this is really fun.
Again, we're just glad we get to be doing what we do.
Yeah,
and
I
we're
was
grateful.
noticing a lot of friendship bracelets on you.
Yes. This has become a bit of a thing.
He loves Friends.
Yeah. My arm could be full. Yeah.
It has been somehow 10 years since you entered the world of beer.
Yes.
Changed it forever.
Yes.
With Hops. Now Hanson Brothers Beer is back.
Yes.
With the re-release of Hops, which personally very excited about.
We started off 10 years ago because we were excited about it. We really got invested in it. We helped develop, build out breweries with a couple different partners. We just really felt like this was a great season to really push to grow it into a lot of places. And so, if you're in New York, if you're in Georgia, if you're in Tennessee, if you're in Oklahoma, Texas, those are all states that it's premiering. Hopefully, it'll also be in the West Coast soon. And frankly, if you want Hanson Brothers beer, please ask for it at your local bar and your local retailer, and annoy them and be like, why don't you have this?
I think it has had a little bit of a lifespan. It's evolved over the 10 years where when we started, we thought we wanted it to be just this exact flavor. And as you live with it, you go like, okay, now we've really figured out what we want hops to be and how it should taste. And it's slightly hoppier.
It's
beer
hops. And it's an
Yeah,
IPA.
It's an IPA. It's a proper IPA.
The other style which we're featuring right now is the beer called Pink Moonlight.
Yeah.
So coming back to Penny.
Very pretty can, by the way,
Yes,
which is
yeah.
how some of us judge alcohol.
Absolutely, it's a great can, and it ties back to Nick Drake and to Penny and me. Honestly, it's just about sharing stuff that you care about and hoping other people care about it.
Between the beer and the album and the touring and every other thing that you guys kind of touch in the Hanson universe, I sometimes do wonder, like, how much time do you guys spend together these days?
Way too much
You miraculously still like each other. Like, how does it work? How can other sibling
play
bands
nice on
emulate this?
TV.
We're great actors, yeah.
It's
like each
easy to have a good time doing things that are worth doing. Maybe that's why other people fight and we don't. I mean, when you're on stage playing songs that have real meaning to you, that have been, your life on display, I think that feels beautiful. That feels worth, keeping together. I mean, there's always hard things. The world is full of hard things. That's why we made beer. So that you can make the hard things
Guys,
less
it's
hard.
been 25 years. It's time for a drink.
And I think for us, we have this kind of special superpower, which is the songwriting. I mean, so often if someone's working on a song, and even if it's not for you, you kind of understand this is where you are. And even if you're not involved in it, as you sit there in the studio and you go, wow, okay, how do I make this better? How do I make this fuller? How do I complete this vision? That becomes like a part of the way you're communicating all the time with each other, not just in the things you say, but in the things you share.
What do you guys still want to do? Like, what's sort of on your future bucket list creatively?
I mean, fix the music business.
Small goals.
Good luck. Yeah, that's
Meaning in the sense that I think
20 years ago, we had a shot, and we kind of handed it over, unfortunately, to the same corporations in different forms. So there's time to start and try again. But the trick is we need artists that have backbone, Creators have to be willing to stand up for themselves.
we've been very, very lucky, and we've tried to not take it for granted and tried to work hard to keep it. I hope that in some way, shape, or form, we have been a valuable example that you can do things in a way that maintains your, shall we say, integrity.
I would say at this moment, just like in the beginning, it feels more like possibility. Like when we were kids and I'm 10 years old and we're gonna get a record deal, and you kind of go, I know what that's supposed to be, but I have no idea what it is. So I'm not gonna try and make something of it that it isn't. I'm just gonna experience it. And I think from the point of view of creating new things, it's to continue that way. The challenge is not to be youthful or be jaded, but to just be exactly where you are, present in that creative experience, and finding everything you can inspiring.
If I had an Pops, I would like.
We would have brought one
cheers
for you.
Right?
Yes.
Cheers,
ones who
invisible
really care.
cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.